Hello everyone. Now in this video I'm going to do some examples from Year 9 textbook, and that would be from the Chapter 7. Chapter 7, which is linear equations. Okay, so let's try doing these four questions, and then the aim is basically solve for x. Now if you can see in the first equation, 4x minus 1 equals 7. If you have a look at that, 4x minus 7 equals 7, this equal sign in the middle basically divides the equation into two parts. One, which has got the left-hand side. At the left-hand side, we have 4x minus 1, and then we have the right-hand side. Now, the aim is to have the x on one side, basically x equals something. Now, it actually doesn't really matter if you have x on this side, or for example, you have a number 4 equals x. It's the same as saying x equals 4. Okay, hopefully it'll make more sense when we do some examples. Okay, so we have 4x minus 1 equals 7. Now, the aim is to have the x on by itself. Now, you can see that we have 4x minus 1. Now, I'll start taking those numbers that are just by themselves. Try to take them to the other side. When I take it to the other side, that minus 1 becomes plus 1. Now, my new line would be 4x, because I've got rid of the minus 1 taken to the other side, so I have 4x on the left side equal 7 plus 1 on the right hand side, which is 8. Now, I have 4x equals 8. As you can see, x is not just by itself. The aim is to have the x by itself. Now, I have 4, which is being multiplied by with x. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it by 4, and then I'm also going to divide the right hand side by 4, just to make sure we do on the both sides. Now, why did I do it? Why did I divide it by 4? So that on the left hand side I get rid of the 4 which is on top. Now those two 4 will cancel each other. What am I going to be left with on the left hand side? Just the x by itself. Now x equals 8 over 4, which is same as 8 divided by 4, which equals 2. Now, so for this first one, x equals 2. We have x by itself and the answer is 2. All right, let's do the second example, which is 5 minus 3x equals 6. Now, as I said before, we will start taking those numbers that are sitting by themselves to the other side. When I take it here, so that is a plus 5. Plus 5 becomes, it's the opposite operation, becomes a minus 5. So, new line, I am going to be left with minus 3x on the left-hand side because I've moved the 5. So, minus 3x on the left-hand side, my equal. And then we have 6 minus 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. Now, as you can see, x is not by itself. It's being multiplied by minus 3. So how do I get rid of the minus 3? If I divide it by minus 3, and I must do the same thing with the right-hand side. Now, why did I do it? So that this 3 will cancel this 3, and the minus will cancel the minus. What am I going to be left with? Just the x. X equals 1 over minus 3. Now, I just want everyone to know that this can also be written as x equals that minus at the start, 1 over 3. Now, these both are the same thing, so do not get confused if you leave the minus sign with the 3 on the bottom or at the start up here in front. Now, let's do a couple of more examples. This time, the questions are slightly more complicated because we have to do one extra step. Now, the first one is x over 5 minus 3 equals minus 1. Now, remember, start taking the numbers that are by themselves first. In here, we have not 3, but minus 3. Just remember, you have the sign minus 3. Now, when I move it to the other side, what does that become? That becomes plus 3. So, my new line, I have x over 5 equals 1 plus 3. Now, what's 1 plus 3? It's 2. Because minus 1 plus 3, we have to minus them together. It's 2. The sign would be a plus because 3 is a bigger number and it has a plus sign. Now, what am I left with on the left-hand side? X over 5 equals 2. Now, the x is not by itself. It's being divided by 5. So what I am going to do is so I'll just get rid of the equal sign first so I can create some space. Now, x divided by 5. Now I am going to multiply it by 5, and I'm going to do the same with this 5. That 5 is not a random 5. Basically, it's this 5 from the bottom. So if I have a look at that, it's this 5. I'm multiplying it by 5. So I get rid of this one, and they cancel each other. Now what am I left with? X equals 2 times 5. And x equals 2 times 5 is 10. Now let's do the other question, which is 1 over 5 x minus 3 equals minus 1. How do I do it? It's actually two ways to do it. Now either first of all you can actually expand this by multiplying it by, oops, I'll use a different color pen. Now either you can expand it out by multiplying it by this and then multiplying it by this, or, which is the other method which I'm going to show you now, is just get rid of this 5. How do I get rid of it? Right now, if I multiply 5 times that, and then I have to do the same to the other side, 5 times that, what happens is that will cancel each other. 5 will cancel that. Now, what am I going to be left with? Bracket x minus 3, so there is a 1 in front, equals minus 1 times 5 is minus 5. Now, this one at the start, this 1 here, is 1 times that. You know that if it's just 1 and being multiplied, we can actually get rid of it. So I'm just going to get rid of it. Now what am I left with? X minus 3. X minus 3 equals minus 5. And we have a bracket outside. So you can actually get rid of this bracket because there's nothing, no number outside the bracket. So I'm just going to erase it. Oops, I think I erased the X as well. Now, so what am I left with? X minus 3 equals minus 5. Now what do I do on the left hand side? I am left with x minus 3 equals a number. So I want to get rid of that minus 3. How do I do it? So that minus 3, you move it to the other side of the equal. Now minus 3 becomes, the opposite would be plus 3. Now how do I do it? So what am I left with? I've moved the minus 3, so I'm only left with x equals minus 5 plus 3. I'm only left with minus 5 plus 3. Now what's minus 5 plus 3 equals? Minus 2. Problem solved. For this one, x equals minus 2. Okay, so this question is from exercise 7A.1, which is on page 127 of year 9 textbook. Question 3 from page 128. Question 3G. Solve for x. We have 3x minus 4 over 6 equals minus 1. Now, first thing first, I am going to get rid of this 6. How am I going to get rid of it? So let's do it. Now, 3x minus 4 equals minus 1. Now, either you can multiply this left-hand side by 6, or you can just get rid of it, or what you can do is try to get, how do I move it across? If I move it across, now right now the numbers on the left hand side are being divided by 6. If I move it across, the opposite operation would be times by 6. Now what am I left with? On the left hand side, I'm left with 3x minus 4 equals, what's minus 1 times 6 is minus 6. Now what am I going to move next? I am going to move this minus 4, shift it across, which becomes plus 4. What am I left with on the left side? Just 3x, because I've moved the minus 4, so I'm left with 3x on the left hand side equals, what's minus 6 plus 4? Minus 6 plus 4 is minus 2. Now on the left hand side I have 3x, which is 3 times x. How am I going to get rid of it? If I divide it by 3, and then I do the same on the right hand side, 3 and 3, they will cancel each other. 3 and 3 will cancel each other. So what am I left with? X equals minus 2 over 3. And that's the answer to this question. Now, any questions? So please comment below this video if you want me to do any particular question from chapter 7A or any exercise. Just write down the question and I'll see if I can manage some time to do it and record it. Thanks for watching.